it going to turn off because I pressed it twice? I hope not. Okay. Welcome. Thank you so much for agreeing to be an interviewee for my Dialexicon project, which I've been calling a magazine, and now I'm kind of calling it a video project because that makes sense because there's no paper in sight. And on the website, I use the words a listening project because the intention is to create a different kind of space of listening. And these very short interviews, I want to be pleasurable for you and me, but that's less important than it being enjoyable for you. And foremost in that is ongoing consent. So if you say something and you're like, you know what, I don't stand by that anymore, please remove the interview. That is your choice always. You know, before, during, after, or after publication.
Thank you so much.
World. If we get to a paper portion, I'm not sure how I would withdraw a paper interview, but I was thinking about that this morning. I was like, what if you were like Vanity Fair and you had someone on the cover and then they died? Like, how would you, like, could you turn the boat at that point?
Right. Well, I'm glad to be here in conversation with you, and I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. So Dialexicon is, the Dialexicon interviews are short. They usually just have 2 questions, and they're sometimes as little as 4 minutes, 4 or 6 minutes. So by no means is it intended to encompass all of who you are or all the many things you do. And, each person could have 1,000 different Dialexicon interviews, and none of them would be the authority. The intention is to be in the moment, to be fully present, and to share as much as you're comfortable sharing. And then so the first question is pretty open-ended. The second question is a follow-up from the first, depending how you answer. And we didn't really set up parameters, but I'm, obsessed with you. I'm a fan since discovering your huge canon of work and your many published books, and I have the honor to work with you in a committee capacity, and I call you a friend.
Thank you. The feeling's mutual.
So I wanted to kind of throw it to you if there was an area you did or didn't want to talk about, but I was going to, we haven't even talked about, like, we know each other in a religious context, and we don't actually, I don't feel we've shared a whole lot about our spiritual lives. So one of my possible opening questions was going to be around, does your spirituality have a place in what you write? But I really want to ask you if that's of interest, because even just rattling off the names of your titles, we could go a lot of different directions.
True. I'm happy to discuss that. It's relevant to a work that I have in progress. And
okay.
And I wouldn't mind talking about the titles of some of those too, since they have some religiosity.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm sort of gonna bookend this and say this is the Dialexicon interview with Rashid Darden. You're based in, are you in Philadelphia?
North Carolina, United States.
Not at all Philadelphia, North Carolina, United States. And you've published, I'm gonna say, at least a dozen books. And because we have a shared context, I'm asking Rashid, what's the relationship between your spirituality and your many manuscripts or your writing process?
Thank you. So I was someone who was raised in the church, but not from birth. When I was, I don't know, somewhere around 5 or 6, my mom joined a church in our community when I lived in Washington, D.C. And it was very exciting for her, and I was sort of indifferent until I had to dress up and go places on Sunday mornings with her. And what I remember about that experience is that when we went to it was the 8 o'clock. Wow, that was early. The 8 o'clock service. And we'd get to church and the corner store wasn't open yet, but by the time we got out around 10:30, it would be open for breakfast. So it would be nice to go and have breakfast with my mom. And those were sort of my first experiences with organized religion. From a personal standpoint, I sort of grew away from the Baptist tradition in my teenage years, and going to undergrad at Georgetown University, I got exposed to a lot of different religions and got introduced to the Bible as literature, and looked at the Bible in a different way. I looked at it much more academically and literarily. So because my first novels were written in my early to mid 20s, so soon after that experience, religion religion and the African American journey, if you will, because that's what I write about by and large, went hand in hand. Now, each title of my first three novels, the first three novels are about the Black American fraternal tradition. So I won't spoil where the titles come from, but Lazarus is my first novel, very much about death and rebirth and resurrection in a kind of a theoretical sense. Then Covenant being very much about strong bonds between two people, and then Epiphany, the realization of, in the case of this book, the relationships between and among people. And a lot of my work does reference, even in my speculative fiction, I still love playing with the Bible as a source of myth and a source of monsters and a source of, as well as a source of light. So, even in novels about vampires or demigods, like, all that stuff really still comes into play. My most my work in progress is, so my book Yours in the Bond didn't have an overtly religious title, but is the first time I think that I write about a Quaker and Quaker worship. So in one of the scenes, this group of friends is in the Caribbean for vacation, and one of them has located a local Quaker meeting because he has started attending, and he brings his friends with him, and they're like, "Oh, this is something." Um, and so, which brings me to the work that I'm currently writing called A Peculiar Legacy, which is about a Black Quaker community in Washington, D.C. And it is my first and probably will be my only overtly Quaker novel. Because it's hard writing about religion, and it's not a Christian novel, so it's not necessarily family friendly, and isn't supposed to be. Uh, so that has been interesting, writing less about and inspired by the Bible and more about Quaker religious practices. So that's sort of the arc of how religion has at least influenced the titles and some of the content of my work.
Wow. Wow. I want to read the whole collection, and I'm really excited for A Peculiar Legacy. So as you were speaking, the word that first stood out to me was corner store, because I could really picture that communion, that time of breaking bread with your mother after church. But I'm going to choose the word journey, because you talked about the journey, and could you say exactly what that means to you? What is that journey? Take your time. Yeah.
So, there's a difference between the word journey and the word travel, right? Travel to me, I think about physically going somewhere, but a journey feels to me like a transformation from one thing to another. Travel feels like going someplace to get back home, and a journey is going someplace whether you know where you're going or not. When I think about my journey from boyhood to adulthood, and knowing that even as an adult, I was still in very many ways, not a grown up. Um, I think about how reflective people describe me as a reflective person. And I realize that that's who I've had to become if I didn't want to stay where I was. The journey to me means divorcing my first religious experiences from my current religious experiences, and not feeling that my religious journey had to take place in the same building for my whole life. And realizing that my family and my friends don't have to come with me. That's how I became a Quaker, being comfortable and confident, making the best decision for me. I think a lot about love and loss, and what it means to be in community with others and what it means to be out of community with others, and acknowledging the journeys of others, and that there's a phrase I've heard. Some people say, well, we're all in the same boat. Well, we're not all in the same boat. Some of our boats are yachts, and some of our boats are rowboats, and but we can all be ships in the same storm. And I would say even beyond that, we're all crafts in the same waters. And sometimes in some places the waters are rough, and sometimes they are calm. And my journey has been calm, my journey has been rough, and my journey has transformed me. I sometimes say, I'm sure you as an educator have heard resilience as an idea pop up a lot more in the past 5 years than probably the first years of your professional life. And I don't always feel resilient. I actually feel pretty worn down a lot of the times by life, by social justice issues, by love. Um, but through it all, I feel, despite not feeling very resilient, I do somehow believe that I'm going to make it and that I'm going to get wherever it is I'm supposed to go, even if where I'm supposed to go is just in the boat that I've been in the waters with everybody else.
So good. So good. Uh, that's that's complete. That's a complete Dialexicon interview. I'm so touched and moved, and so I'll probably edit from here so we can chit chat, and if I can stop recording if you want to, if you want. Um, but I keep having this thought, like maybe I should only interview writers, because there's this relationship with language where there's a comfort in like the discernment as you're speaking, and that experience of you painting this picture is just so thank you for taking me on that journey.
Thank
That was
you. Thank you
so
for having
beautiful.
me. I appreciate it.
Well, I want to honor your time, and we are complete for the interview, and I hope you'll send me links for. Are you going to have like a count? Do you have a publication date for Peculiar Legacy?
It's still being written, so I will have to get back to you on that.
Yeah, no problem. But yeah, I also, when I bookend the interview, you're welcome to use it if you feel like it shares something that you want to share about yourself. Because
Thank you. Thank you. I would appreciate that very much.
And part of the invitation with Dialexicon, my dream, my vision is that it really becomes a movement, frankly, a space of a slower kind of listening, a leaning into listening, something that you can do with your idol and your neighbor. And that, because, you know, fundamentally, I feel like we crave connection, and we crave spiritual connection. We crave a connection that's not just based on material transactions. You know, we love that sensation of not just mirroring, or like echoing, but being heard and seen. And I just love people. One of my big commitments is I won't interview someone if I'm having an argument with you in my head. I asked for an interview, and I was really glad it got declined, because I was like, I'm not ready for that interview, because I have some disputes, and I don't want this to be the space of debate or even what's it called, investigative journalism, like digging for something or finding some dirt. You know, I don't want someone to feel uncomfortably exposed or unsafely, you know, vulnerable for an exploitative reason.
Right. And your questions are very wide open and good for that purpose.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. Yeah, well, my friend Jacqueline is working with, I feel like she should come say hi, because she said, do you want to come say hi? Just because we're sort of co-working on our Hello. This is Rashid, this is who I was just having. And like, no, really.
Hello. I'm having a hard time hearing you now.
Oh, and then the audio you probably couldn't hear us.
Sorry. Correct.
Okay, now we can hear you. That was amazing, Rashid.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So y'all, where are you at physically?
So this is 4th week of physically I'm in Toronto.
Okay. I mean, but where are you, at home? Are you not working in the school? I missed something.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say, but I forgot if I had shared this in our last meeting. I had a concussion at the end of April. So okay. I was off for 3 weeks, and then this was my easing back into, so I have 2 hours a week, 2 hours a day this week, and then so I'm easing back into my full time. So it's not normal that I have work hours open, but Jacqueline and I, like, we're sort of plotting our big dreams together, and she was like, if you're around, like, we work well together, so let's eat lunch and change the world a little bit.
Love it. Love it. When I'm like traveling, like, and I'm like in DC, I always tell my friends, like, hey, want to co-work? Like, and they're like, oh, well, no, they're just not into it yet, but we'll get there. Because also sometimes I just want to like work and know somebody else is there, but not necessarily like entertain. So
exactly. And I feel like the ADHD community has done so much for languaging that, because I think people really benefit. It's you're an educator, you know how, like, when you make accommodations for one student, everyone benefits. And the more we learn about, you know, self-regulation and pacing ourselves and, you know, Pomodoros and all these little techniques for getting shit done, it's like, it's good learning for everyone.
Absolutely. I
have to read the names of, I want Jacqueline to hear all the names of your books. So tell me, listen to this. Lazarus,
Covenant, Epiphany, Yours and the Bond, Birth of a Dark Nation, Children of Fury, Time, and The Life and Death of Savion Cortez.
Wow.
And then there's some standalone stories on Amazon Kindle only. Pascal, Thunder Rolls, and I have one that's actually not. I haven't individually published it yet, but it's called Cotton Dreams. It's a science fiction story about a male couple, a male married couple that's shipping cotton seeds to the newly colonized Mars. So like 200 years in the future.
Well, so Jacqueline is a fucking TED Talk. I don't want to use the word junkie, but like enthusiast. Yeah. She is so into TED Talks, and I have a friend who did a TED Talk on space policy as it relates to nationhood, and many of her studies have been around like treaty relations, and basically like, is there a way we can relate to a planet that's not colonial, and what are the models we can use to do that? And Jacqueline had seen that interview, and I was like, that's perfect.
I started talking about one. She's like, I know her. I'm like, oh my god, it's amazing. But yeah, that's so cool. Like, so these people, they're bringing the first cotton seeds to Mars, and so it's about their journey there. Is it more like an interpersonal book, or is it like kind of?
It's really, so the story behind this is I have an acquaintance that runs a small press called Neon Hemlock, and Neon Hemlock was publishing a chapbook, a short story chapbook that was going to publish like 4 queer science fiction stories. And I'm not really a science fiction person. I'm more so like urban fantasy. I like consuming science fiction, but so he said, Rashid, we're not really getting good submissions. Do you have anything you could submit? And I said, I don't, but how much time do I have? And he said, what, we need it in about a week. I said, say less. And so 7 days later, I wrote it's just a short story about this married couple that they're both retired military, actually. And they're like sold this dream of like, hey, be a pioneer on Mars. And they decide they're going to be cotton farmers on Mars, because they found the water on Mars. Basically, they found a way to like kind of harvest the water. So it's really about this. I think like the ship is attacked is really, the action is that the ship is attacked, but it is interpersonal in that it's like, oh, this is queerness in space in 200 years. This is it's reverse colonization. It's giving, future Black families a way to sort of reclaim, what was taken from them, if you will. Or is it just capitalism? Is it sinister? So it's short, and I don't really answer any of those questions, but it was fun to write.
Good question.
Yeah.
Josie doesn't read a lot of fiction, but I might try and put that in her hands, because I feel like that goes to a lot of places that are really. I listened to an audio book of Alien. Yeah, I think it was, and it's like a multi chapter, so it's sort of an extended narrative of Alien. Or was it a book first? Maybe it was the original book. I'm not sure.
It's probably an adaptation.
It's an adaptation, and I never picked up on, and I don't know how developed they are in the movie because I haven't gone back to it, but the role of military versus scientist versus the new life colonizing a new space. Because there's these very tense moments where like military's been told one thing and one set of priorities, scientists have been told another set of priorities. Who gets the last rescue boat? Who has the code for the rescue boat? Like they're really in that moment, they're figuring out like who's been given the bigger ticket out of here in a worst case scenario. And it really like makes your brain go to like, it's not just who's paid more, it's what we've decided is most important, like discovery and understanding, they're sort of making military mean survival, but also weaponry and killing.
Right.
So yeah, that sounds like.
Well, it was so nice chatting with you this afternoon, and nice to meet you. And I got to get back to work, sadly.
All right. Enjoy your afternoon, and thank you so
You
much
too.
again.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.